Welcome everybody to the webinar. I'm Annie O'Gara of the Stop the JNF campaign and Sheffield PSC. We've got three Palestinian speakers tonight, Mahmoud Zawari, Musab Sofin and Manal Shakir. And together their input is going to come to about 45 minutes. And that gives us time for a question and answer session afterwards, returning to the crucial issue of what we can do. So I'd just like to say that I feel very privileged to be hosting these Palestinian speakers this evening, who will give us evidence and eyewitness accounts from the ground during this current wave of appalling violence, these pogroms against the Palestinians. 190 killed this year so far, 30 of them children, 7,500 new settler units declared, and 17 villages attacked and ransacked in one single week. And of course, we see these attacks not as isolated acts of viciousness, which they are vicious, but they're not done by rogue elements. We set them in the overarching framework of settler colonialism, and at the core of that is the project to eliminate the Palestinians from their land, to erase all traces of Palestinian ownership, belonging and identity to the land. So that's the frame in which we will view everything that we hear tonight. So just to get us started, I'm going to ask Sophia if she can show us the short video that we circulated earlier.
راح ينام الساعة 9 المساء، صحي الساعة 2، يعني صار الحادث الساعة 2 فجرا. اجوا مستوطنين حركوا امه، حركوا ابوه وحركوا اخوه، حتى احمد توجه الى المستشفى وقعد خلال تقريبا 20 يوم وهو فاقد الوعي، فتح عينيه بدون ام بدون اب بدون اخ.
They put him in a car and tortured him on the way to Deir Yassin forest. When they reached the forest, the three men tied up Muhammad and poured petrol in his mouth while he was alive and set him up.
So that's the daily reality of life in Palestine, with 3 settler attacks averaging each day. And that equation at the end, settler violence equals state violence, is absolutely true. Now, we'll turn now to introducing our first speaker, Mahmoud. Mahmoud Zawahiri is a farmer, an environmentalist, an academic, and a member of the Popular Struggle Coordination Committee. This is a grassroots organisation resisting settler colonial land grabs by working alongside those communities which are most threatened by the new generation of marauding youth, whose hilltop outposts are often the precursor for one of the more big settled settlements, threatened by the settler youth, threatened by the JNF, and threatened by the state. Mahmoud also partners with Stop the JNF in our Plant a Tree campaign in Palestine, and he's currently organising Palestinian and international support for the forthcoming olive harvest in order to deter settlers from yet more attacks on this vital harvest. So Mahmoud is going to speak to us for about 15 minutes, and then he's going to introduce us to Musab, and Mahmoud will translate for Musab, who's an Arabic speaker. So Mahmoud, over to you.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, everyone, for joining, for organizing, for taking the time to know what is happening in Palestine, especially in this time, in this year, in such critical periods the Palestinians are living. And we just came out not only from the settler violence and attacks against Palestinians, but also from a big attack against a small Palestinian refugee camp, Jenin camp, which is no more than half square kilometer in the north of West Bank, with more than 20,000 Palestinian refugees who were expelled from their land back in 1948, to wake up on the 3rd of July with more than 2,000 Israeli occupation forces equipped with all the kinds of weapons that you can imagine, with the planes, with tanks, with drones, with dogs, with everything. And they invaded the camp. And they killed more than 12 Palestinians, injuring more than 100 Palestinians. 20 of them are critically injured. And they destroyed and partially destroyed more than 250 rooms and houses of Palestinian refugees. They destroyed completely the infrastructure of the camp, the roads, the sewage water, the drinking water, electricity, telephones, everything they destroyed in this camp. The Israeli invasion lasts for 48 hours with mass destruction of the refugee camp. This is not the first time, and it will not be the last time. Back in 2002, Israel invaded the camp and killed more than 60 Palestinians. And today, after 20 years, they came to kill the sons of the one who was killed in 2002. They are killing and targeting the teenagers who was born after 2002. And that is a message from the Palestinians that wherever there is occupation, there will be resistance. And Jenin is the symbol of the Palestinian resistance from one generation to another. Israel aimed to destroy the camp, destroying the camp in order to withdraw the legitimacy of resistance and the solidarity of resistance among Palestinians. They want to deliver a message: as far as you support the resistors, as far we will continue punishing you. But the message came from the people of the camp. When a family left a message in their home, when they expel 300 families out of the camp, and the family left a message to the freedom fighters saying, the house is yours. We don't care if the Israelis destroy the house. We left you the food in that room, and we left you the water in the fridge. And also we left 700 shekels, around 200 pounds, in the freezer of the fridge. If you need them, take them. These bricks equals nothing without dignity and with in front of your sacrifice. And that was the message of the people, solidarity. People from all over the West Bank came up to the camp to stand beside them, to show solidarity, to tell the Israelis the most you use aggression against Palestinians, the more Palestinians will be unified and pass solidarity among each other. This crime, war crime of killing Palestinians, destroying Palestinians, refugee Palestinians in their camp, is a war crime that the international community must stand with the people in order to stop that, to stop this from happening from time to time. Jenin has lost 12 Palestinians during the invasion of the camp. They lost their homes, they lost their streets, their memories in these houses, just because the Israelis do not want to give the Palestinians their freedom. They want Palestinians slaves, and that's why Jenin and many other refugee camps, many cities, many villages in Palestine decided to stand up for their rights and to say it's enough for this. What happened in Jenin can happen and might happen everywhere in Palestine. And sadly, it is not stopping there. It's not only the army who is doing this. Every single component of this system, of this colonial system, is doing crimes against Palestinians. And what happened in Jenin is conducted by the state, by the Israeli forces, by the Israeli occupation forces, while what is happening in Area C is conducted not only by the Israeli army, but also by the settlers, by those extreme settlers who became the government these days, who are rolling the country in Israel, such as Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who are ministers in this government and who committed to crimes against Palestinians since the 90s and before. That is the daily crimes they are committed against Palestinians and conducting against Palestinians. This year actually recorded the highest level of settler terror against Palestinians. Up to date, the settler conducted more than 4,000 attacks against Palestinians in less than half a year. They killed 8 Palestinians. I am talking about settler violence, not about the state violence. I'm talking here about those settlers who are attacking Palestinians. They killed 8 Palestinians and they injured tens of Palestinians. They destroyed many houses and they burned many houses, as you saw in Hawara. The last horrible terror attack that was conducted against a Palestinian village called Turmus Aya to the east of Ramallah, when more than 400 extreme settlers invaded the village, burned the fields, burned more than 30 houses and 60 cars, and killed a Palestinian youth living with 2 children. For him, they left them orphan after they killed this Palestinian youth from Turmus Aya. Turmus Aya is not the last, and it will not be the last. And there are many other. The list is long, from Hawara to Masafir Yatta to the Jordan Valley. All the Palestinian shepherds and farmers are targeted by the Israeli settlers. They are targeting them on daily basis. The average is more than 3 attacks a day, and that is more than the percentage of the past years. This is how the Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinians. They are not only targeting people, but they are targeting also animals. They are targeting environment. They burned all the crops in such time of the year, the wheat, the olives, the grapes, everything green they are targeting, as we saw a sample in the video. Those settlers are not doing what they are doing separated from the state. In the past, as you saw in the video, the settlers were masked behind the soldiers. But today, the settlers are doing what they are doing without the soldiers, alone, because they are armed and they are backed by the state, covered by the police, covered by the army, covered by the judge, by the court, by everything in the state. And recently, what we noticed that Israel is establishing outposts. Those settlers are building outposts, and these outposts even are illegal according to the Israeli laws. Since the beginning of the year, Israel, the settlers, established 13 outposts. And since the beginning, they established 89 outposts. They are controlling, those settlers are controlling 8% of Area C. Simply, they want the land and they want to push the Palestinians out. Those settlers are using violence. The one you saw in Nablus, in Jordan Valley, in Masafir Yatta, everywhere, they are doing the crimes against the Palestinians. They are making the life of the Palestinians very difficult. And they are attacking their sheep, their goats, taking their water resources. They let their sheep in their crops. They make their life very impossible. But the Palestinians are gathering their resources, their people, in order to challenge the Israeli settlers by maintaining their life and staying on their land, bringing people together. They are able to stand up and to pair the settler violence, which we are here today in order to know more about what is happening there, in order to act against what they are doing. Today, we are here to discuss this settler violence against the Palestinians, the terror actions that they are doing everywhere in the West Bank, especially in Area C, simply because they do not recognize the existence of Palestinians in Area C, simply because they want to grab the land based on their mission, the land without people for the people without land. That's their strategy, their vision, and they are working centimeter by centimeter on the land of the Palestinians to grab it. And this is not isolated from the government. Even if we go and try to open a case against what they are doing, the police most likely will arrest us, not the settlers who attacked us and beat us. This has happened with many Palestinians, including my friend, who settlers attacked him, broke his arms, and instead of arresting the settler, they arrested him, and he spent 12 days in jail, and he paid 15,000 shekels in order to be released. This is not only measured on the Palestinians who are living here, but also this village, Tormusaya. Most of the residents of the village are from America, and they are American Palestinians. And when they contacted the consulate in Jerusalem, the American consulate, they told them, why you are here? You should leave. And that's why Palestinians, we do not want them to lose hope. And tonight, we are bringing with us here an eyewitness of these settler attacks. Tonight at 3 a.m., he called me and he sent me messages, videos about when the settlers surrounded his house. As many other Palestinian farmers, as many other Palestinian shepherds, when they attacked them at night, when they tried to scare, to scream, to use direct violence, to shoot, to poison their water. Mus'ab Sufin, who is living in a village south of Nablus called Burin, and he is between the bypass road and a settlement called Yitzhar. The settlers constantly and frequently attacked him causing the death of his father and his mother. Tonight, Mus'ab is going to tell us his stories and forgive him because he lost his voice while he was screaming at 3 a.m. last night against settlers who came to attack him at his home. I will leave the floor to Mus'ab to tell his story about what is happening with him and what is his story with the settlers. Mus'ab حبيبي اتفضل احكي لنا قصتك عرفنا على حالك وانا راح اترك.
اسمي مصعب صوفان من قرية بورين.
My name is Mus'ab Sufan from Burin village.
متزوج ولدي طفلين.
I'm married and I have 2 children.
أنا بعيش حياة يعني أشبه بالجحيم يعني عندنا اعتداءات المستوطنين يوم بيحاولوا إنهم يحرقوا البيت وهججونا منه.
I am living a very hard life under the settler attacks that is happening on daily basis, and they are trying to burn the house and to expel us from our house.
حرقوا البيت 3 مرات وتوفى عليها أبوي، صابته جلطة وتوفى.
They burn our house 3 times, and my father got heart attack because of the settler attacks and died.
طبعا أنا بنعيش حياة يعني ما في أي مقومات للعيش هون، لا في سعادة ولا في أي تعيشي. عندي طفلين صغار قاعد بحاول إني أقدم لهم إشي من الفرحة والأمل رغم إنه يوم في هجوم مستوطنين والتهجير من هذا البيت.
There is no happiness. I'm trying to steal happiness to my children, to draw the smile on the faces of my children, despite what is happening around me.
ما بتقدر تروح على البيت، تغادر البيت، تروح مثلا على فرح. أنا يعني خواتي تزوجن وما حضرت فرحهم، ضليتني في البيت خوف لأنه مستوطنين يجوا يحتلوا البيت هذا وما نقدر إن نعيش فيه.
I cannot leave the house because I am afraid that they will come and burn the house. My 2 sisters get married and I was unable to go and attend the wedding because if I leave the house, they might come and burn the house. So how come I will be happy?
يعني عيشتنا أنا صعبة جدا. يعني أنا بعتذر عن صوتي لأنه امبارح الساعة 3 الصبح هاجمونا المستوطنين وإحنا نيام وإحنا نايمين. يعني لولا لطف ربنا كان حرقوا البيت علينا.
Last night at 3 a.m. the settlers attacked us, and while we were sleeping, and we woke up. That's why it's a miracle happened that we wake up and they didn't burn the house.
يعني أنا ما بقدر أنام لا ليل تقريبا ولا نهار. يعني في النهار بظني أطلع حوالين البيت نزلوا المستوطنين ما نزلوا. في الليل بخاف على أولادي وزوجتي لا سمح الله يحرقوا البيت وإحنا نايمين. ففيش أي مقاومة للعيش هون، صعب جدا.
So imagine my life, my daily life. All the day I watch around the house that the settlers will come. And during night, I am afraid that they will come and burn the house. So I wake up also at night. And because I want to protect my children, my wife. So the life is impossible here.
أنا مش قادر يعني إني أطلع أولادي وأبعثهم على أماكن ترفيهية لأن الوضع اللي أنا عايش فيه ما بسمح نطلع من هذا البيت بالمرة يعني.
Even it's I cannot take my children for fun, for places to play because I cannot leave the house. I cannot leave the house because the settlers might come and burn the house. مصعب تحكي عن القصة اللي صارت مع أمك وأنت طفل صغير.
يعني أنا من ريعان ما عشت في هذا البيت، يعني ما شفت أياتها يوم سعيد. يعني عشت خلقت على هجوم المستوطنين. أمي ربتنا وإحنا صغار، أبوي توفى. يعني حاولت إنها تزرع لنا شوي من الأمل بس ما قدرت.
My mother put the seeds of hope in us. Since I was born, I born with the faces of the settlers in front of me. I lost my father and I lost my mother, but my mother tried to plant seeds of hope for us. احكينا عن قصة لما اجوا المستوطنين وحاولوا يحرقوا البيت وانتم كنتوا جوا وانت كنت طفل صغير، وقديش عمرك وين هذا الحكي صار؟
نعم صحيح، هذا الحكي صار في 2002، كان عمري تقريبا 11 سنة. شايف علي؟ صحينا الصبحيات لقينا المستوطنين فايتين جوا البيت وضاربين سيدي، اللي سيدي يعني ابوي، وكانوا يديروا بنزين من تحت الباب ويحكوا لنا اطلعوا من هذا البيت. حاولوا انهم يقتلونا فيه، بس لو ستر ربنا الحمد لله رب العالمين، يعني احنا حياتنا كذا الحياه.
When I was 11 years old, back in 2002, the settlers came in and they attacked my grandfather, and they poured the petrol under the door, trying to burn the house. And this image still stuck in my mind when they beat us at that time. And Musab, tell us more. How was your mother? How she passed away? كيف أمك ماتت؟
امي ماتت من القهر، صابها سكري وفقدت نظرها من الحياه اللي كانت عاشتها، من الماساه اللي عاشتها. لا بتقدر تطلع ولا بتقدر تفرح ولا بتقدر ايش تسوي. امي سبب موتها اللي هو قهرها من المستوطنين، يوم يجوا على البيت يحرقوه، يحاولوا انهم يقتلوا ولادتها على وهي عايشه يعني على نظرها. فمن القهر فقدت نظرها امي، صابتها جلطه.
My mother became blind. She was super worried about us. She got also like all the kinds of problem, sugar, pressure, all the kinds of diseases because of this worry, until she lost her eyes. She became blind and she died because she was afraid that something will happen to us.
حاولت امي يعني انها تزرع فينا شويه من الامل والحب للحياه، بس ما قدرت. يعني العيش اللي احنا عايشينها هي عباره عن ماساه، عن جحيم. انا ما بقدر اني اوصف لك الحياه اللي انا عايش فيها في كلمتين او ثلاثه او اربعه. انا اللي ما بيعيش انا ما بيقدر انه يحكي عن الحياه اللي احنا عايشين فيها.
I don't know if there is a language that can describe how I am living. If you are not living this life, you cannot imagine this life. And how I can describe this, despite the fact that my mother tried to make us love the life and to give us some hope. But now there is no mother, no father. I am the father. واليوم انت الاب وانت ابو الاطفال وانت اللي بدك تزرع الامل في الاولاد.
ان شاء الله رب العالمين، ان شاء الله ربنا يقدرنا ونزرع الامل فيهم يعني، وان شاء الله رب العالمين يبقى زمانهم احسن من زماننا. لاني انا يعني مش متخيل يوم من الايام ان اولادي يعيشوا الحياه اللي انا عايشها. يعني بتمنى انهم يعيشوا حياه افضل من الحياه اللي عشتها انا.
I wish that my children will live a better life than my life. I can't imagine my children will live the same life that I am living.
يعني انا عندي طفل كمان سنه بده يفوت الروضه، يعني ما في ايات باص او ايات سياره بتيجي هون. يعني انا هامل هم اني كيف بدي اوديه وكيف بدي اجيبه.
Next year my son will go to the kindergarten. I don't know how I will send him. No cars come here and I cannot send him to the kindergarten because we are isolated. There will be no car coming to take my son to the kindergarten. I'm worried about their future.
حتى على مستوى العمل والشغل يعني بقى مش قادر اني مثلا اثبت في شيء في شغل. يعني كل ما اشتغل الشغله كنا عازمين المستوطنين، اركض احمي الدار، ما في حدا في البيت غير النسوان والاطفال. يعني هذا البيت اللي احنا عايشين فيه ما بنقدر ان ندركه يعني لحظه واحده، يعني مباشره.
Even when I want to have a work, I cannot maintain this work because at any time the settlers will come and attack the house. So I will leave the work and go back home to protect my wife and my children. مصعب، كلمة أخيرة شو بتحب تقول للناس هذول؟ شو بتحب تقول لهم؟
بقول لهم إنه ان شاء الله رب العالمين انه الوضع عندنا بصير احسن من هيك ان شاء الله. وهو يعني وبتمنى انه الاحتلال انه يزول يعني، وما في يكون اي مشاكل في هالدنيا هاي، والواحد يعيش بسلام وامان.
We hope that we will live in peace and safety, and this occupation will end forever, and we will have a better life. واحنا كمان بنتمنى لك يا مصعب حياة آمنة، وإن شاء الله ربنا بيجيب بالأمان عندكم كمان وعند
امين يا
كل
رب على الجميع دكتور، الله يبارك فيك يا رب. شكرا لك كثير، وشكرا للجميع الحضور الموجودين.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mus'ab, for your witness about what is happening. Again, the story of Mus'ab is not the last and not the only one. There are hundreds, thousands of stories like Mus'ab, and maybe more difficult than Mus'ab. Some families lost their children, lost their parents because of settler attacks, because of the settler terror against the Palestinians. And thank you very much, Mus'ab. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you very much indeed, Mahmoud and Mus'ab. And for someone who thinks he doesn't have the words to describe his life, I think we've had very eloquent testimony there, and a wonderful, unforgettable phrase: Mus'ab steals happiness to give to his children. So thank you very much. The questions are coming in, and we're going to keep those until after we've heard from Manal, our next speaker. And welcome Manal. Manal also combines academia with her activism, and Manal is a climate justice activist, singular, and her work reveals how environmental violence is actually a tool of the ethnic cleansing process. She's a coordinator for Stop the Wall and an international outreach coordinator for the Land Defences Coalition. Through those organisations, Manal partners with Stop the JNF. She's currently working on her PhD, and she has a very special interest in women's contributions, women's experience of settler colonialism and their contribution to the movement. And she's going to talk to us tonight about that topic with special reference to Musafir Yatta. So thank you, Manal. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Annie, and hi, everyone. What I'm going to say about what is happening in Masafir resonates very much with what Mahmoud and Mus'ab have already shared and with what we've seen video. So just to introduce those of you who are not familiar enough with Masafir, the South Hebron Hills. That area includes two areas, which are Masafir Yatta and Badiyat Yatta. In Masafir Yatta, Fallahi or peasant communities live, while in Badiyat Yatta, Bedouin communities live. And the Bedouins who live in that area, in Badiyat Yatta, and Badia in Arabic means the part of the desert that where there is water and pastures available and where people can live. So this is where Bedouin communities live, and some of these Bedouin communities, the tribe that is originally from Tal Arad in the Naqab. They were expelled from their land during the Nakba, and they moved to Badiyat, and they settled down and tried as much as possible to maintain their semi-nomadic lifestyle. And another tribe called Al-Ka'abni is originally from the area, but it lives in the drier part of Badiyat Yatta, which exacerbates the suffering of the family because it's a dry area combined with the practice of the Israeli occupation. Masafir Yatta since the 1980s has been classified as firing zone 1918, while Badiyat Yatta is classified as firing zone 1917. And Bedouin and Fallahi communities in these two areas face similar problems. And I'd like to particularly talk about this recent phenomenon that is called Israeli shepherd settlement outposts, and how this directly affects women, how women in Masafir Yatta and in Badiyat Yatta bear the brunt of these these Israeli policies and systematic settler violence. So Israeli shepherd settlement outposts, as Mahmoud was saying, it's not a recent, it's a recent phenomenon. Like it's almost 6 years old, and by Israeli settlers, of course, through support from the Israeli government. Only one or a few settler families live there with their cattle. But when they attack Palestinians, when they try to graze in Palestinian grazing areas, they are joined by other armed settlers. And all these settlers who are spreading Israeli shepherd settlement outposts are or belong to what is called the Hilltop Youth, which is a settler movement that since the 1990s till 2020, they've managed to build more than 170 settler outposts across the West Bank, particularly in Area C, and Masafir Yatta is one of them. So basically what these settlers do while Palestinian shepherds are grazing their sheep, they attack them, they try to steal some of their sheep, they intimidate them. And women are directly affected because as part of the culture, particularly Bedouin culture, women are also responsible and take part in grazing the sheep. So they are the ones who go to the sheep to graze them in their pastures, which means that they are directly attacked by Israeli settlers. And many women have reported being beaten badly by the settlers. Some of them, they had their legs broken by settlers while beating them with their guns. And these women try to put them in front of in front of their kids, especially male kids, who join them to graze the sheep, and they accept being the ones beaten instead of seeing their children being beaten. So they, on a daily basis, they sacrifice their lives in order to protect their sheep and in order to protect their children from the settlers' attack. And they are not actually giving up on going every day, trying to maintain Palestinian existence on the land and graze their sheep, despite of the fact that they know that that settlers would come and attack them. And as Mahmoud was saying, in the past, we would see settlers attacking Palestinians, but behind the soldiers or standing next to them. But now they are the ones doing the job. What the Israeli army or Israeli police do is that settlers call them after beating Palestinians, including women, call them to come and arrest Palestinians or continue the job, like doing the rest of the job, which is attacking Palestinians, invading their homes, intimidating them, and intimidating children just for the fact that Palestinians resist these settlers and try to stay on the land. So this is the kind of roles each party has been playing, be it the settlers or the Israeli army. And coinciding with the attacks on the villages in the district of Ramallah and the district of Nablus, as Mahmoud and Musab were mentioning, the village of Tuba in particular in Masafir Yatta has been targeted by settlers recently. And what the settlers did, they attacked the village, and they broke into people's homes where women and children were there, and they started intimidating them, and they damaged their furniture and their windows and left after that. And now people in Tuba and also in nearby villages, they are always intimidated, sleep at night, just waiting for settlers to come and attack them, or worried that they don't want their sheep to be stolen from them. They don't want their homes to be burned down by the settlers. So they are disrupting ordinary life for both women and men and also their children. Another thing is that many women in Masafir Yatta, because as I mentioned, in Masafir Yatta and also in Badiyat Yatta, it's a dry area, and Israel has been denying Palestinians their access to water. And it's the job of women to go and fetch water from wells, which are sometimes distanced from their own communities. Some women report that they have to walk for 2 hours in order to get to water resources and get water every day. And what the settlers have been doing is that they wait for the women close to the water wells, and once they are there, they start intimidating them. They don't even allow them to get water in order to get water and use it for their daily use, because it's the only source of water. And settlers in the village of Tuba, for instance, they stole or plundered all the water in the well that the community relies on as their own main source of water. And they, after plundering all the water and making sure that they took out all of the water, they destroyed the well for the community, which means that the community for days was unable to access water resources. And women are the ones to bear the brunt, because they are the ones at home doing domestic activities that rely mainly on water resources. So they are the ones who have to navigate other ways to go to more distant areas to bring water to their children and to their families. Another issue related to Israeli shepherd settlements is that these settlers, unfortunately, they've managed to a certain extent to take over large pastures in Masafir Yatta and in Badiyat Yatta, not allowing Palestinians to access them. And this has badly affected these communities, especially those who depend on animal husbandry as a source of income, as a major source of income. And this has been also reflected, talking about it from a social perspective, this has been reflected on the role women play, because for centuries, women, particularly Bedouin women, they used to be an integral part of family. They used to graze the sheep, they used to make dairy products, and for the men to sell them, although there were gendered roles, but there was kind of an egalitarian, relatively speaking, an egalitarian relationship. Each one's role is valued, each one's role is important to the family and to making a living. But now with animal husbandry no longer a source of income, has meant that men have to find other job opportunities, which is usually working for Israeli corporations in Israel. And women cannot do this kind of job. Many of these women are not educated, so they cannot get a job in the Palestinian market. And actually, jobs in the Palestinian market are limited. So many educated women and men are unemployed, so they don't count on the Palestinian market to get a job. So anyhow, when these women are finding themselves just confined to the domestic sphere, not doing anything, feeling that they are unproductive, and this affects their social status and also the way they see themselves, the way they see their roles. They feel that they are now more dependent on men than ever before, which means more control by men. So this is how Israeli settler colonial disposition intersects with masculine norms that oppress women or increase the oppression of women. Another aspect through which women are oppressed or badly affected by Israeli practices is the denial of Israelis, of Palestinians, their right to education, both in Badiyat and Masafir Yatta. And there are schools in these two areas, mainly primary schools, that are threatened by demolition, and they might be demolished at any moment. The school of Spy has been was demolished last November. So people expect that the Israeli military and bulldozers would come at any moment and reduce the schools to rubble. And for women and for girls, schools are a source of hope for themselves to be empowered. And this is something that they emphasize, because when they have schools inside the communities, they can access education, but in distanced communities, families, especially male figures in the families, prevent their daughters from going to, or their sisters from going to to distant schools, claiming that they will be attacked by settlers, or girls are not allowed to go to distant schools because this is not part of our cultural norms. So this is how women are denied education, because men or boys can access schools, but that restrictions on these girls. So some women who are not really old are illiterate because they couldn't get education, because building schools and defying the Israelis has been a recent phenomenon. Like most of the schools built are only a few years old. This meant that many women, especially Bedouin women in the area, in the past like 2 decades or 15 years, they couldn't access education. And as I mentioned earlier, even if they get education, they don't get job opportunities, partly because, as you know, the Palestinian economy is controlled by the Israeli economy and totally dependent on it. And even another aspect is a cultural one. Most that women work as teachers, so limits the potential of the potential of them getting jobs, other kind of jobs in the Palestinian market. Something that I wanted to mention as well is how the lack of healthcare systems, like lacking clinics or health centers in the areas, badly affects women and children in particular, because this means that the families should, especially women, pregnant women, when they want to give birth, they go to Yatta or Khalil, to Hebron, to go to hospital. And these areas are distant from the community, especially because the roads are unpaved and the transportation infrastructure is so bad in the area. And the communities used to rely on unlicensed cars because they are cheap. They can't afford to buy licensed cars. And now, since the last couple of months, Israel has been there has been a mass targeting of unlicensed cars, which the communities use to get tanked water from other communities, to go to the doctor, to hospital, to also try to get their needs, because these communities are remote communities and they are cut off from the rest of the other communities and cities, centers or central areas like towns. And some women, usually when they go to the hospital to give birth, the Israeli military stop them sometimes for hours, and they start abusing these women, because for them, women are like the source or the reason that disrupts Israel demographic restructuring of the country in favor of settlers, because they give birth to more Palestinians. And this is something that the Israeli soldiers made comments to pregnant women, saying to them, you're gonna give birth to one more Palestinian boy to throw stones at us. So they abuse them at checkpoints on their way to give birth, and some of these women had their lives being at risk. So this is how just quickly highlighting how the women bear the brunt of Israeli apartheid and settler colonial practices in Masafir Yatta, which resonates with other areas in the West Bank, particularly in Area C, like the Jordan Valley. But women have been playing a key role in steadfastly resisting the Israeli occupation. When their homes are demolished, they are the ones who take an active part in rebuilding their homes. As I mentioned, they continue to go to their pastures and their grazing areas, despite of the fact that they know they will be beaten by settlers. But what they know better is that they don't want their land to be lost to Israeli settlers. And they are the ones encouraging their kids also to go to the land and not being afraid of settlers and not giving up on maintaining Palestinian existence on the land. I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Manal. And I think we've got from our speakers there so much information we didn't know, and it's by far the best way to hear it is from Palestinians. So now then, if we look at the questions, there's quite a few good questions coming in, and I'd like to start by picking up one from the chair, simply because it's more about Britain, and then the rest of them will go back to our speakers. Jennifer is interested in why the British government is so reticent on the Palestinian issue, and I think there's all sorts of historic reasons for that. The historic responsibility goes back to Balfour, the mandate, and so on. So Britain actually opened the Pandora's box and got the whole thing going. I think it's also such a strategically important location in the oil-rich Middle East, and Britain wants to have its ally there, which it sees as Israel. And of course, Britain tends to be on the coattails of America. And I think Rajendra wanted to know if Biden and Sunak really didn't know about what's going on, which I think ties in with this question. And I'm pretty sure that they all know. I'm pretty sure that every single person in every government across the world knows exactly what's going on, which makes their reluctance to apply the same rules to Palestine as it applies to the Ukraine so much more culpable and reprehensible. So I think they do know, and I think there are various good reasons why Britain is, well, not good reasons, explicable reasons why Britain seems to think it should ignore the Palestinians and ally itself with Israel. And the latest bill, the Economic Activities of Public Bodies bill, really cements that, where Israel cannot be targeted by universities or city councils for boycotting or for divestment and so on. There's a really good question here, which I will ask our speakers, from William and also from Lisa. What is the most effective action that people can take if they're unable to travel to Palestine? And Lisa is echoing that question when she asks, how can people here step up to the plate? So I think I'll ask Mahmoud and then Manal and to answer that.
Thank you, Annie, and thanks for this good question. Actually, first of all, what can be done in the UK? And I think there must be a chain that we as people can put pressure on our elected people in order to bring that to the politicians, to the government, to stop at least supporting and passing laws that inhibit any solidarity with Palestine. So let's say nowadays in the UK, with all the laws that they are trying to pass in order to inhibit any action of solidarity with the Palestinians, that's from you. Our duty is to deliver you all these materials that we have, and then to pass it to the UK people so that they can put these evidences in front of the MPs to take an action. That's what we need and what we miss in Palestine. In the opposite of the Ukraine-Russian issue, when you see the UK government is ultimately supporting Ukraine, is ultimately saying Russia is bad and Ukraine is good, while in Palestine, we don't know who is good and who is bad. When we work within the UK society and on our MPs and we put pressure, then I think something will happen. On the micro level and on the level of the campaigns, I think also people can act on the ground by supporting our campaigns that we are running. For example, planting a tree project is a project that we are running now in Palestine with the Stop the JNF campaign, where people are supporting Palestinian farmers with grape trees and olive trees. And by this, we are protecting the land of the Palestinians so farmers will stay on their land. This means that we inhibit the settlers' attacks because people go in groups and we support the farmers when we are with them, because protection is about numbers also. When there are more Palestinians together, they can at least challenge the settlers in order not to attack them. So when we found these opportunities of planting trees that protect the land, offer a source of income for the Palestinian farmers, this will create independency on the Palestinian level, because farmers are producers. Farmers are not consumers. They are not clients for the Israeli market. That's why we see settlers are targeting the land. They want to push the people from their land, because then those farmers will be cheap workers in the settlements in Israel. And then they will be dependent on Israel. So those people will not be involved in any kind of resistance. So when we support this campaign, this means that we are supporting, we're protecting the land of the Palestinians. We are at the same time generating income for the Palestinian farmers, so they will not be dependent on Israel. And it is a political act. It is a political act where it is a bottom-up approach for fostering the resilience of the Palestinians by maintaining their life on their land in order not to leave it, because Israel is legitimizing grabbing the land of the Palestinians. They are using different laws in order to control the land of the Palestinians. They want Palestinians as consumers, cheap labor in their markets. And by this project, by this campaign, we are challenging, we are resisting the colonial policy of Israel against the Palestinian farmers and shepherds. So that's why we want you to be involved in this. Also, I want to say that this year we are organizing, as many other years, a campaign of picking olives called Faza, which is a social tradition. Palestinians, when they come together and support each other. This campaign aims to support, protect, and help farmers in picking their olives in the threatened areas. And we urge you, if you can come to Palestine, to register an online form that will be shared with you. And so you can come and witness, go back to the UK as a messenger to the Palestinians, to talk to people about what you witnessed by your own eyes in Palestine, to see the aggression from settlers against Palestinians, from the occupation against Palestinians. Then you will be involved. My message also, the last message to the people in the UK and to the people in the West generally. Solidarity is a value and we cannot detach it from our daily life. This value must be translated into our daily actions with our children, with our family, with our friends, with the workplace, with the work, with the people we are working with. Then we will create active atmosphere. We cannot disconnect activism and solidarity from our personal life. We need solidarity on all levels. When I go to Tesco or Sainsbury, I must look at the products, where they come from, and to check if they are coming from Israel, then I boycott them. So these individual behaviors are very important because it will translate into action, and the UK government will come to you and will tell you what we can do if we make solidarity as a daily practice, a daily doing in our daily life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. Some very clear actions there. Manal, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with all what Mahmoud said, and I'd like to add that it's important to support or increase support to ongoing BDS campaigns. Yeah. That's really important because it's also a response to the anti-bill, to the anti-boycott bill. It's, for me, increasing support to the BDS is one of the best ways to to challenge the bill, which targets mainly the BDS movement. Another thing is that it's really important to, I mean, as Mahmoud was saying, to also support Faza and send delegations to Palestine to witness the situation here on the ground, and hear from people, and also emphasize to them that they are not alone and that they are being supported by people internationally. Another thing is to challenge the mainstream media and try to because they are complicit, to expose the mainstream media for their complicity in marginalizing or even silencing Palestinian voices while centering Palestinian stories, because this is the thing that would help in changing public opinion as regards to Palestine and Israel. And if there is any kind of upcoming campaigns or initiatives in support of the communities, like providing protection for the communities, like forming protection committees, or as Mahmoud Musab at the beginning, Mahmoud mentioned about Musab's home at the beginning, that they've managed to build a wall around his home in order to be protected from settler violence, or at least to make it harder for settlers to attack them. These kinds of initiatives or this kind of support is more needed than ever before, as tools that protect the communities and make it harder for settlers to assault them. Thank you.
I think those were incredibly rich answers, and I think what we will do is document those, and Sophia will provide some links now, but we'll also provide lists of ideas that people can follow up afterwards. So that was very good. Can I just broaden it a bit? Rocco is asking, can we expect the UN to bring sanctions against Israel, because the Palestinians are, of course, a protected people? I don't know which of you would like to comment on the UN.
We know the game of the international of the United Nations that is controlled by the veto on the Security Council. There has been, I don't know how many resolutions passed through the General Assembly of the United Nations, from 181 up to the last resolutions, and never implemented, because it will face the wall of the Americans' veto. And that's where we can see the double standard. When America want to urge the war against Russia, they managed. And when they want to empty the United Nations, they do. And they never, America, they never lets the United Nations say a word for Palestine to take an action. And we witnessed that during history and the records of the United Nations. And more than that, I would say that America withdrew the Palestinian cause from the United Nations arena, and they want to take it for their own sole solution and their own vision of solution. That's why we cannot see any movement from the United Nations, apart from humanitarian issues, apart from feeding the Palestinians to the point that when the Israelis slaughter them, they can find meat on them. They want the Palestinians to be just their nose up the surface of water. So when Israel want to dive them, they dive them. That's why I would say the failure that has happened to the peace exploited the word peace. So we saw in the eyes of Musab that where is hope? How I can describe my life? So peace is a bad word in the dictionary of the Palestinians after Oslo, because there is no peace. Simply peace means to submit to the Israeli conditions and to live as a slave without dignity, without freedom. I don't see that the United Nations, despite that the majority of the states are supporting the rights of the Palestinians, simply because we are living in a jungle, simply because it's the law of the jungle. It's the law of the United States. that deals with Israel as a colony for them in the Middle East. That's why, and when it comes to implemented any United Nations resolution, and if the Palestinian representatives go to the International Court of Justice and all of this, they will put sanctions on Palestinians. They will put sanctions on Palestinians instead of putting sanctions on Israel because they are above the law. And we saw the rudeness of the Israeli representative in the United Nations when he said that we own this land because it is, and he quoted from the Bible that it is a promised land. Which kind of logic this state representative in the United Nations excuse his ownership of the Palestinian land by a promise from God for him coming from Europe or the United States or Russia and take my land.
Okay, thank you. Manal, do you take any encouragement from Francesca Albanese while we're on the subject of the UN?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's doing a great job, at least to challenge mainstream narrative, even within the UN, about what is happening in Palestine. She speaks out about the situation, but she herself admitted that her role, or the role that she's playing, is limited.
Yeah.
And because of what Mahmoud was saying, actually, that the UN has failed us. Resolutions have been issued in Palestine, but they lack the mechanisms to be implemented or to force Israel to comply with these resolutions. Another thing is that she's being attacked by pro-Israelis, and that is something that also affects the kind of work she's doing. And yeah, I'm not underestimating the work she's doing. Of course, it's important, as I said, the reports that she's been working on about the situation in Palestine are really important, especially for advocacy, like for BDS advocacy, for Palestine solidarity advocacy across the world. These reports stand as evidence from someone who is working in the UN about what is happening in Palestine. So I'd say it will help us to do more advocacy and to take advocacy for Palestinian human rights to another level. But what I would support more is, as I said, BDS campaigning and supporting Palestinians on the ground, because while we call on the world and the international community represented by the United Nations to hold Israel accountable, our homes are being burned, people are being killed, others are intimidating people on a daily basis. So there's no time just to keep calling on the international community to act, because it's not acting. What we really need is that we want to feel the support materially on the ground to help us defend ourselves and protect the affected communities.
Yeah, thank you very much. That ties in very neatly with the question that Sean has asked, which is, are there many international observers there who act to document and defend the Palestinians at the moment, or is the situation deterring people?
Annie, may I say one word or two words, like just looking through the questions and the comments in the chat and so on, I just would like to ask all the audience not to use the word IDF. The word IDF means Israeli Defense Forces. And how come the Israeli forces are defense forces? They are occupation forces. I know that this is in as a knowledge production in the UK, that everyone is passing this as normal word. No, it is not a normal. When I see IDF, I feel provoked, and we do not want to use this word. So from now on, please use the word IOF, not IDF, because we need to to call them as they are. And they are an occupation forces, as many other concepts, because if we compromise with this knowledge, a new knowledge production, this will impact on our activism on the ground. So bear that in your mind when we use the concepts in relation to Palestine. Thank you.
I think that's absolutely right, Mahmoud, and the language that we use is constantly evolving, and that is a very good direction for us to go. We have to name things as they really are. Yeah. Manal, what would you say to that?
About, you mean documenting what is happening on the ground?
Yeah, about the importance of internationals on the ground. Are there many? What's going on?
Well, there've been for years, there've been international activists coming to Palestine to document human rights violations and join Palestinian farmers and shepherds when they cultivate their land or graze their sheep, in order to help protect them from settlers, but also document settlers' attacks under the protection of the Israeli army. They've been also documenting home demolition when it takes place, and according to for talking about Masafir Yatta, according to some residents in Masafir Yatta, they've noticed that the documentation of home demolition by international activists and making noise about it internationally has reduced the frequency of home demolition in Masafir Yatta. I'm talking particularly about the community of Al Khair. Of course, demolition took place several times. Some families had their homes demolished for like 5 or 7 times, but they've noticed that the frequency of home demolition has become less than before, thanks to the documentation of human rights violations by international activists who are present on the ground with the communities when these attacks take place. But at the same time, to counter this, Israel has also been targeting international activists. The most recent incident was deporting an Italian activist from Palestine who used to work in Masafir Yatta after a smear campaign that went viral on social media. And that campaign has been led by Israeli settlers, because they've seen her every time they try to attack Palestinians, that she's always there confronting them along with Palestinians. So they were fed up with her, and they decided to campaign against her and pressure the Israeli police to deport her. And this happened to other activists. So there are countermeasures being employed by Israeli settlers and the Israeli army in order to deport these activists. But this shouldn't stop us. Talking about human rights organizations like Palestinian human rights organizations like Al-Haq and others who document human rights violations, Amnesty International, Beit Salem, Israeli human rights organization, and Human Rights Watch, among others, they document these violations. They've also released their reports in the last few years that what is the system that is in place is an apartheid system as part of imposing Jewish supremacy on the land, as Beit Salem emphasized. So they are doing their job on the ground, but with limitations in terms of the narrative, like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. Like you can find critique about these reports and how limited they are in terms of reflecting the situation on the ground on the internet. But still, I would say their reports matter for advocacy work internationally, for BDS campaigns to advance BDS work more internationally.
Yeah, thank you. And your reference to the apartheid regime answers another question, which somebody put in about whether we should boycott everything that comes from Israel within the state of Israel and obviously the settlements. And I think the answer is an absolute yes, because the system from the river to the sea is an apartheid regime. There's no distinction. So yes, boycott everything that comes from the state of Israel. There's one other interesting question that I think we might have time for, and it's from Helen about the role of the PA and their credibility and what the future of the PA is and the implications of this for the struggle. It's quite a difficult, complex question, but I wonder if you would like to tackle that for Helen.
I don't know how to say about the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is a temporary body that was created after signing Oslo Accords in order to lead this temporary period until we reach the independent state. But it seems that this temporary body is going forever. After 30 years, still we have a Palestinian Authority, not a state. And those people, the leadership is tied by agreements with Israel that they cannot have much space to move. And they are unable to move forward or to go backward, to withdraw from what they signed with Israel. So I cannot see that the Palestinian Authority is able to lead the struggle of the Palestinians because of the shrinking their political space nationally and internationally. I mean, in a way that they are under between the hammer of the international community and the rock of Israel, to the point that they lost their vision and stayed as they are. So they cannot, for example, defend Jenin camp when they invaded Jenin camp. According to Oslo Accord, they cannot do it. Area C, which is 60% of the occupied Palestine, they cannot have any action there. They are not even allowed to do anything. So I would say the authority has no authority on the ground. And Israel designed Oslo in a way that there will be someone who will take the responsibility of delivering services to the Palestinians without taking the responsibility as an occupying power. If my opinion is we need to redefine the Palestinian Authority, to give a definition. What we want from the Palestinian Authority is the Palestinian Authority the political representative of the Palestinians, or it is a service provider that take this humanitarian role. I would say the PLO is the representative, the political representative of the Palestinians, but the PLO, they killed the PLO because Israel want to feed the PA on the account of the PLO, on the account of democracy, on the account of real representation of the Palestinians. So I cannot say that even people handle a big hope on the Palestinian Authority. That's why we have to bring hope from bottom as people on the ground. So you can see the hope in Mus'ab's eyes more than a political leader. And that's where the frustration comes from the failure of the peace process. And the failure of the peace process is more dangerous than the being defeated in a war. And that's where we are trying to bring hope from bottom and to foster the resilience of the people from bottom, not from top. Even I would say the two-state solution is imposed from top. We never accept a two-state solution. So it's something imposed on Palestinians. And that's why they always, there is no success and there is no improvement because Israel don't want, and there is no pressure on Israel enough in order to respect any kind of agreement.
I'm just noticing the time, and I'm wondering if Manal, you would like to say a short few final words, and then I will talk about briefly some of the actions that have come up in this very full session that we've had.
Yeah, just to add to what Mahmoud said, the Palestinian Authority is not just about providing services or humanitarian support or administering daily life for the Palestinians. It's the entity that has been created also to be partly doing the job for Israel. And here I'm talking about security coordination. So the PA is losing, or years ago, it has lost its legitimacy among Palestinians, but now with increasing resistance, it's losing its legitimacy more and more because in the eyes of every Palestinian, the PA is directly complicit in entrenching Israeli apartheid, directly complicit in undermining any attempts to resist the current situation. So this is what I would add about the Palestinian Authority. Thanks a lot for joining the event and for listening.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I'd like to say thank you to Manal, Musab and Mahmoud for incredibly informative and impassioned contributions. Those were really very, very good indeed. And as I said earlier, we'll try to document some of the suggestions that came up and send them out to people, because there were so many things that were spoken about there. And I think I'd like to pick up what Mahmoud said about starting the resistance from the bottom up. And I think in this country, when it comes to what we should do, we should remember that we pressure our MPs, but remember our own power, and we resist any accusations of anti-Semitism. We reject them completely. They're just an attempt to stop us from speaking the truth. And so what we would ask you to consider doing as a result of listening to our friends and comrades in Palestine are to support the Stop the JNF Plant a Tree campaign. Mahmoud spoke very eloquently about its impact in helping people to hold on to their land. We've got a big target of £15,000 to try to reach. We reached our last year target very well. Support Faza, and which is the olive harvest. If you can't go, Sophia will put up a sheet where you can express your interest, and if you can't go in person, you can contribute towards the expenses of the Palestinians taking part, and maybe of an international taking part as well. As any donation is very helpful, and this is a very important project, a protective witness and co-worker for the Palestinians. Please endorse the Stop the JNF call to action. If you're part of a group, join the movement. And if you're not on our mailing list, please join our mailing list. It means you will get updates on actions, you'll get newsletters, and you will hear what's going on. But the main thing is stay loyal to Palestine, support the Palestinians, and as Mahmoud says, make it part of your daily practice to speak about Palestine, talk to your neighbours, your friends, your family, and encourage as many ordinary people as possible to be active, be hopeful, and believe in the Palestinian call for justice, because it is a most important call that we all have to respond to. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Manal, Mahmoud, and Mossab for speaking to us tonight. It was a really enjoyable and informative experience. And with that, I think I'll say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.